So
just sit right back and you'll hear a tale.
It's an excursion into the odd and into the very, very different.
Good morning.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Yeah. And we started with a chat rate of 2, which will become 0 soon. It's good for you. Title of the show, The Second Beginning of the End, Psychoville Part 2. And you got to be a loyalist of this show. Yeah, chat rate down to 0. As I predicted, this whole thing, it's all wrong, man. It's all wrong. We don't even belong out here in space. What are we doing here in space? Hurling through space on this ball. It's crazy. I started to get up at like 1:30, and I said, I can't get up. I felt good there for a while, and then I started to feel bad, and I laid in bed till about, I don't know, 3:50 something. You know, we tell the time in digital numbers these days. Though I've got a few analog clocks around the house still. Pain in the ass when you gotta fall behind and spring ahead. Springing ahead comes up next month, so we've got a month until we got to worry about that nonsense. We're going to go around the house and fix about 6 frickin' clocks. It's the year 2022. You think the clocks would automatically fix themselves. They've got RFID chips and everything else, you know. If you haven't figured this out by now, there's no...
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
There's no method to this madness today whatsoever. So, expect the unexpected.
Your papers, please.
And still going on with that stuff. I gained 1.4 pounds yesterday because I ate some Nutella on a few crackers. And didn't go for a walk or something because it was frickin' freezing outside. But I mean, and that's why I've got this thing, this thumbnail title card, whatever you want to call it. It's currently 18 degrees outside of my... Oh, no, it's 9 degrees outside of my alleged studio here in Studio City, on the East Coast Studio City, on the Eastern Seaboard, mid-Atlantic states, not too far from I guess in the heart of the Appalachian, the Appalachians, you could say. It's weird. It's showing it's 9 degrees outside, and I believe it, too, because I was going to take a picture of the thermostat in my back porch, which was getting down to freezing, and I have plants in there. But in the closet in there, sealed off, the temperature was high enough to keep those things from dying. It's saying it's going to go up to about 34 degrees and then 27. Now it's claiming tomorrow's going to be 52, and Thursday's going to rain all day and be 57. And Saturday that's showing wind. But it's going to get back down to Saturday night, 19 degrees. Pretty nuts. I got to trim those apple trees. Hey, it's good for ya. That's the title on the thumbnail here. It's good for ya. Look at this. This is a box of cereal. This was the cereal. I put some oatmeal, this crap, flax meal. I'm trying to stay alive in this world where they're trying to poison us. And the thing is, okay, this is so-called healthy cereal. I had to split up this thing along the side. I didn't even show the ingredients. It's whole grain, it says in big letters on the front. But when you read, I couldn't even get that fit on there. It does have whole grain oats in it. But it also has whole grain corn in it. Whole grain corn. I mean, You might as well. That's corn, high fructose corn syrup. It's just it's just like unsqueezed. It's like unsqueezed orange juice or something. Whole grain instead of squeezed corn to turn it into high fructose corn syrup. But this is called processed food. These are additives, that type of stuff. So total fat, 1.5 grams. And as you can see, they're monosaturated and polyunsaturated. They're the ones you don't want. Like you want saturated fat, if anything. That's 0. So, and you see how they put a big 0% dark next to saturated fat, like kind of to almost negate that there's total fat, just 2%. No cholesterol, okay, big deal. Do you know the liver makes most of your cholesterol anyway? That's like another one of those weird wacko things they have people kind of brain messed up with. Okay, but here's the thing. Here's the whole reason I wanted to talk about this, or whatever. Yeah, I'm in one of those kind of semi-moods. I'm half awake, even though it's almost 5 o'clock. It's 4:55 a.m., man. I don't know. So I'm like, I don't know. I'm tired. Something's bringing me down. I didn't do anything yesterday. I decided to break down and watch some of that Ozark. And maybe that was it. That's like depressing. I could hear these stories about these like, demons at the threshold of, that you got to pass through to rise to the next level of existence and all that stuff. And and talk freely about that. But, watching a show like Ozark, those kind of things, man, that just like totally brings me down. They do that with a lot of shows. Hopefully I'll remember that. I forget things, I notice that when I do the playbacks of this, or I misspeak, or I say the wrong word, and then I don't correct myself, Yesterday I was saying how I call Google YouTube sometimes. And yesterday I was watching back and there was some other really doofus thing I said. But anyway, back to this chart. If you can see it, if you're watching this on a smartphone, well, you're an idiot, because who the fuck uses smartphones? I mean, what the hell? Who cares about those things? The only thing a smartphone is good for is like convenience. If you're expecting an email or a call or something, maybe. But I mean, people walking around and texting and using apps and stuff with those things. That was the downfall of the civilization. It really was. And then this is the second downfall. This is why you're why you're using that thing. So total carbs 32 grams. And so the DV with the 2 double asterisks, and I forgot to look to see what they're trying to do there. But whenever you see an asterisk period next to something, you know it's something fishy. When you see 2 of them, that's like they were really messed up. Okay, so carbohydrates. Well, what are carbohydrates? Those are just complex sugars, so that's going to break down to sugar, 32 grams of sugar. Dietary fiber, 3 grams. Okay, there goes the trucks, the coal trucks speeding up my street at 60 miles per hour on a 25 mile an hour speed zone, shaking the bones of my house. Total sugars, 8 grams, including added sugars, 8 grams. So what they're saying is, and this is all this FDA crap, because they try to, these daily values, right? They push this stuff to make it seem as if you need. How could 8 grams of sugar be only 16% of your daily intake? You know, everything's got sugar in it. And carbohydrates, carbs are sugars too, technically. And then further down, which I have on the right-hand side, this is the stuff you get there. So you get, basically no vitamin D, basically no calcium. Sounds like a lot, 200 milligrams, but it's like 15% of what you need. They're expecting you to drink this with milk. This is without milk, by the way. 100% of iron. So they put iron filings in this. Potassium, 4%. Vitamin A, important vitamin. Well, they're not giving you much of that either. Vitamin C, very important vitamin, not giving it to you. And then this thiamine, riboflavin, niacin, man, they seem to put that in just about everything. They're saying vitamin B6, 100%, that's another FDA lie. That is probably about 1%. What they call 100% is about 1%. And then folic acid, folate, who needs it? Vitamin B12, what their 100% is, it's like 1%. And then this pantothenic acid or whatever, who cares? Phosphorus is like, that like lights up in the dark, right? What are you taking that for? Magnesium, they should be giving you more of that. Zinc, well, you could use some zinc. But the main thing about this is sugars, and that this is healthy. Whole grain oats. I'm not going to name the brand. This is actually a major brand, popular brand. But think about that. So they're giving you polyunsaturated and monounsaturated fats, right? A bunch of salt. They pretend it's like 6%. Like, we have too much salt in our diet. And then it's loaded with carbs and added sugars. And and this is supposedly good for you. Look at that truck. Anyway, yeah. So I don't know. I just don't feel well today. Well, hopefully we'll live through the show, and all of that. That would be a nice thing.
This is insane. Oh, no.
Don't worry about it. I'll drink some coffee. Maybe I'll feel a little bit better. So, yeah, I don't have anything planned for today other than, just that the second beginning of the end, Psychoville Part 2. The beginning of the end was the show I did towards the end of the year or something when I decided I was done doing shows. So this is the beginning of the end, Part 2, where I'm almost at the point of like thinking these things are done. In Psychoville, well, we're living in Psychoville. So I tried to put in a couple of interesting shows this year. I tried to fix this chair to no avail. I think I had some positive shows, but I'm looking more at this now as, like I said, I don't want to get on a negative thing, and people don't like negative. I don't want to. It's not like a downer. It's just a reality type of thing. I mean, that's what YouTube is. This is YouTube. This is YouTube in its in its pure sense. I mean, the only pure you could get is that guy Nerve Gorilla, who might be on live. He was on live a little while ago. He might still be up there playing some kind of like top 10s from some guy. It's like weird, crazy stuff. And he's tweeting to himself or chatting to himself. But, you know, and he had like 4 views. One of them was me. But, you know, that's the whole thing. You know, it's like, it's raw, it's real, and it's unpopular. But that's kind of what it is. You know, if it makes any sense. You know, it's like you can't tell the person, you know, creating something, you know, by themselves in a room that, well, there's nobody watching you do this, so you know what I mean. And I'm not gonna, I don't want to really get this into some kind of. I wanted to keep this show down and like, kind of down to earth in reality, and not get too lofty with it. But just for the sake of it, I mean, take a picture of this. Not literally. I'm pouring coffee. Bulletproof butter filled coffee. The Irish, they've got this is the grass-fed cows from Ireland. St. Patrick's Day is just a little over a month away. I'm probably the only person on YouTube out of the 2 billion active users that said that. I'm probably the only one who said there's too many sugars in everything we are fed. Processed food, you know? And of course that whole grain corn is GMO. It's like there's no, you know, corn. Everything is corn, you know? Everything is corn. Most people in this country are on a diet of corn, and they have no idea. It's like everything they consume has corn in it, right? In one way or another. It's like some kind of high fructose corn syrup or some corn derivative or something that's, you know, it's corn. What did they call it? Maize, right? Corn. And there's a picture somewhere on, I don't know. It's not worth looking at, but if you look close, corn is actually a blade of grass. If you take a blade of grass and hold it in your hand, when like the blade of grass starts to have like some seeds on the top of it, right? If you've ever seen, you know, people mow their lawns on those overpriced sit-down mowers, and they have a lawn the size of a, you know, I don't know, the size of a kitchen, but they have to have a several $1,000 sit-down mower so they could keep up with the neighbors. So they probably never get to see grass get to that point, but it only has to get to be about this about this big. You know, blade of grass. Most people have their lawns manicured as if they have a mini golf course on their, you know, in the front and back of their house. But if they let their grass just get to here, which is at the top of it up here. Well, anyway, if you took a picture of that, or if you just look at it yourself, you'll notice, and then you look at like a corn stalk, right? It's corn. It's like as if someone took a blade of grass and, you know, gave it like, that Miracle Grow stuff and gave it some super mega dose of Miracle Grow. And so instead of it growing to be whatever this is, 5, 6, it grew, you times it by feet, right? So if it's 5 inches, it's 5 feet tall. Knee high by the 4th of July. Check that out sometime, this summer. Find a blade of grass somewhere that you missed or somebody missed or it's growing on a sidewalk and like just yank it up and just stare at it for a second. And you go, that's a frickin' corn stalk. That's what they're feeding us, man. That's those added sugars and stuff. It's somewhere down the line somebody mutated, or corn got like nuked, which is more likely from some previous civilization, some nuclear war, which even makes the whole thing like even scarier, and why our life expectancies like, drop so much and continuing to drop. But yeah, corn. See, now that garbage truck, it's garbage day. Hey, he just passed my house. I have garbage out. What the? I hope they got my garbage. I don't know what to deal with that. Man, there's a lot of crap in that one because I really filled that bag to the max. Unless some animal got in there and crawled it open and they just passed because it looked like a mess. Stupid things you got to worry about when you have a house. Or deal with, put it that way. But, I'm just going to like gut on that corn thing. And I did forget that other thing I was going to talk about. See, I knew that was going to happen. A new version of this software is available. Let's see. Would you like to download it now? New features. Updated. Added ability set. Blend modes is set. Added hotkey. I don't use any of that stuff. Added an option to general settings to hide from all capturing. Tweaks. Volume meters will now show audio activity in grayscale when muted. A warning will now be shown when failing to stop YouTube streams. Change dock menu from being a sub-menu. Bug fixes. It looks like a good thing. The only thing is I'm using it right now, so what am I supposed to do? Do they have software update? Okay, yeah. I'll just close that. I just make a note, check for update. Or OBS update. I'll do that when the show's over. Yeah, so somewhere along the line in some previous civilization, corn got nuked, right? Or radiation. Or maybe the last time our magnetic field got this weak, like because right now it's just getting weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And so all these cosmic rays came in, and somehow a blade of grass, seed was mutated into corn, and then it grew. Instead of growing to be a couple inches tall or whatever, it grew to be like 5, 6, whatever, 7, I don't know how, 6 feet tall. What's the tallest corn goes? And now it's become the staple of, we feed it's fed as grain, and fed to animals, chickens, and all these animals that people consume. And it's fed directly to humans, and then it's processed into these various sugars, and high fructose corn syrups, whole grain corn. So they could say whole grain on the front of the box of cereal. That's a weird one you never heard of. I know. I mean, I was just, I'd noticed it a year or two ago, just when I plucked up a piece of grass. And I said, that looks, and I was growing every year. I don't know if I did it. I did it last year, but like last year I let my garden get out of control towards the end because I was like, I was suffering from I had these problems, between a bad tooth and this gallbladder nonsense thing that's, still don't know what's going on with that. Which is the reason why I look at labels and stuff. That towards the end of the summer, I really didn't pay much attention. I was harvesting my food. I had paid enough attention early on that I did get a harvest. So I got a lot of tomatoes. I got some squash and lots of peppers and beans. In the beginning part, I was eating, lettuce and kale and chard, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it was a decent crop of food. But I always have put some sunflower seeds in and a couple of corn stalks and some things like that around the fences, And usually every year I get a couple of ears of corn, Okay, but I don't I only have a small yard. But it was like, I don't know, a couple of years, 2 years ago, a year ago or whatever, I was looking at a corn stalk while I was just sitting on my chair, lounging in the back after I did some garden work or something, soaking up some sun. And so, I'm just sit up and checking out the birds or whatever. Sunny day, listening to some music. And I glance over at this corn stalk, so it must have been towards the end of the summer. And I'm looking, and it's higher than a fence, like the metal fence. I'm going, man, that's like a blade of grass. So I got up and I went over to like the edge of like my little walkway that leads back, because my yard is thin, is long and thin. Like I say, the width of my property line is only around 19 feet. It sounds like, people their living room is wider than that, But it goes back like 190 feet. Something weird like that. It's ridiculous. I could probably pull out my deed if I could find it. It's behind me somewhere, I think. So, yeah, it's weird. It's like 10 times longer than it is wider. So anyway, along this, I have this like concrete walkway that leads from my house back to the rear. I mean, just for the sake of it, I'll show you. You see there's a walkway in the middle in between all that growth, and it leads to that white door. Well, that's like a detached garage at the end of my property line. That's not my house. My house is here in the front, way in the front, like from your vantage point. And there's the lounge chair I speak of. And you can see that white fence on the left side is lower than the fence on the right side. So this was 2 years ago, so there's no corn. I don't see any corn stalks there. So it wasn't then when I took that picture. But anyway, so I walked up that, because I knew that, because I'm not like one of these guys into manicuring my lawn. I don't care about that. In fact, I think the whole month, towards the end of the summer, I didn't even mow my lawn. Because somebody gave me a free electric mower that was like battery powered, like, cordless electric. And it's just died on me. And so now I'm stuck with this giant thing in another piece of junk in my garage. It's like I've got 2 weed whackers in there. Those things last like a season or 2 and then they die. And you can't really throw this stuff out. I don't have a car, take it to a dump. I don't even know where a dump is. It doesn't matter anyway. My garage has just become like half filled with garbage. Like, so I probably have like rodents or whatever living back in there. Good thing it's attached from my house and it's 190 feet away, you know. But anyway, so I knew I could find a piece of grass, you know, that wasn't cut down. And I grabbed one. And I kind of like, you know, there's the corn stalk off in the distance. Not off in the distance, but just there by the fence. And I held this one up and kind of squinted my eyes, you know, so I could make the one in my hand be the same size as the one in the distance. Do you know what I'm talking about? That whole scale thing you could do, right? And I'm looking and I'm looking exactly at the leaves, you know, because grass has leaves that come off the side. Grass is a corn stalk. You got to look at it. It's a frickin' corn stalk. And it was tall enough that it had started to grow, you know, to like go to seed, like, cause, you know, or so, which would be the corn formation of the corn, how corn begins. Yeah, it's really weird. And the only thing it doesn't do is grow a little mini tiny thing of corn like those things you see in, you know, or Tom Hanks was eating in that one movie, Big. I never really liked Tom Hanks that much as an actor. I always thought he got the wrong, like, roles. I mean, he had a couple roles that were okay that, you know, I mean, as an actor, if you get into that whole concept of the profession. And he didn't do such a bad job as that guy with carrying the robot in that, I think it was Apple TV thing they did. But some of his earlier stuff where they had him as if he was like some Playboy type guy. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, you know, no, you kind of look, you just kind of look a little doofy. You know, it was the wrong character. It should have been, they should have had someone like I don't know, I can't think of anything. I might be losing my mind. I don't know. Or like I say, or it's just early in the morning, but I'm not making excuses. I could well be losing my mind. I don't know. So, and it's 150 calories for, you know, whatever. And that's most people then throw in milk or whatever they put in there. And, you know, if you put added fruit, like I put some blueberries in with mine. I don't put milk. I'm not a milk drinker. I put some honey, which is a sugar, I guess, in a sense, but at least I use raw, unfiltered honey. Supposedly, allegedly healthy. I put a little bit of cinnamon. I might take a walk today. Maybe that's it. I've been in this house. You know, if I don't keel over before then, I might take a walk. But it's so freaking cold, man. 9 degrees. You know? And if I walk, I would, you know, the show will be over. By the time this show's over, it's only going to be 10 degrees. It's like, I don't have that kind of winter coat. I had some really neat stuff. I'm just noticing there's all kinds of other upgrades. Like a system upgrade and my Apple Store upgrade. What's this, upgrade day or something? Maybe there was a lot of hacks last night or this week. It's Tuesday. But I mean, when it's 10 degrees outside and you don't really have a legitimate winter coat, I have a hoodie, one of those vest type things you could put over top of it. But I will probably, then I have this flannel shirt on, which I'm wearing right now. So it'll be like 4 layers, but the hoodie's not a heavy duty. The thing I have isn't like a winter, this is polar, weather. Which is weird. I should be waking up by now, and I'm not. I don't know. I'm coming down with something. That's another reason why I don't want to go out. I mean, I hate to sound that way, but I don't really trust, they got this thing, this flu that's been lasting for so long and stuff. Like, I don't trust them out there. Like, what, I don't know. They just keep releasing this stuff to the people or trying to kill us off or something. I don't know. Energy. I ate breakfast. I'm drinking coffee. There's caffeine in coffee. I still feel kind of run down. Stayed in bed longer than I normally do. I don't look tardy. My liver functions fine. My eyes aren't jaundiced. My face isn't jaundiced. Of course, you couldn't tell under this lighting anyway. But when I was doing a little bit of shaving and washing my face in the bathroom mirror, everything looked fine. And then depression set in. It's hard to be like a guy. Sometimes, it's hard to be someone who's always doing uplifting, in some ways, not that I'm totally uplifting. But, when you do a lot of positive talking to people, it's like sometimes you have to realize, physician heal thyself type of thing. But definitely, I mean, the stuff that we're consuming is ridiculous. And if somebody's never tuned into the show before and they see that YouTube thing in the back, understand what it says. It says, presented to Tony Caravan Live for exceeding 3 views. The number 3 views. It's just a gag. Okay. A lot of people today don't have a sense of humor, which is unfortunate. I'm making sure you can see the title of my book there, Then What, and the companion T-shirt that goes with it. Really, the book and the shirt, the hoodie, and the sign of the times, but nobody got it. Nobody got it. So I'm a legend in my own mind. When I was doing my drinking, fairly regular drinking at least once a week, in my kitchen bar with my great sound system, and a nice space to hang in. I had a lot of my own music on my playlist. I mean, not exclusively. I like a lot of music. But it's like, sometimes I feel like that was a whole waste. 10 books. 10 books I wrote, published. Do you know how hard it is to self-publish a book? Yeah. I mean, to actually have it out there in print and on sale at Amazon and orderable from other bookstores. You know, with the ISBN number, it's on to be available at Apple Books and Kindle and stuff. Not that I recommend getting my books on either Apple or Kindle, because I really make my books for print. Because I've always got things in there that you want to write, that there's always a couple pages that you can write on or something. And I just think a book is a book. But I mean, still, the idea, the ordeal, as they say. And to have done that 10 times. 10 times. And 50 songs, I think, in total. And something like 500 of these shows. That was what I mistakenly said yesterday. I just realized it. I said 320 consecutive shows. I should have said 365. And I just said it without even like blinking, like like it was just a brain freeze or, hiccup, whatever they call it. Like as if there were 320 days in a year, Yeah, that was the big one yesterday when I was watching the show back. And 320 consecutive shows last year. Well, there's 365 days in a year, and I did a show every day. But I mean, taking all in total between last year and now, we're already over 400. And I know I've got 100 shows minimum over the course of, the previous 10 years. And not to mention all my personal podcasts dating back into the 90s and stuff like that. So, yeah. So anyway. But yeah, I was talking about that show. I don't know if this was the thing that I forgot or not, but I was watching his Ozark. And maybe this was the thing I was going to talk about, and just for the sake of it.
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Since this is pure vlog, flow of consciousness, more or less. You're just hanging out at my house. Or let me into your living room if you're watching this on a TV or sitting at your computer. I mean, these kinds of shows really aren't made for a smartphone, I mean, I guess you could listen to it as a podcast. I don't know. But, so I'm watching his Ozark, and I'm kind of semi-binge watched about 3 or 4 episodes because I had nothing to do yesterday. It was cold outside. There are things I could have done, like particularly out in the backyard, but it's like the path that I showed you earlier is like covered with, like, there's a snow base, and then it had rain and there's ice on top of it. And I actually have a bird feeder out there where I throw bird seed out and stuff occasionally for the birds. Not fairly regularly, but this time of year, there's not that many birds around, so I don't have to do it every day. And, I almost killed myself going out to that. It's just too slippery. So I can't do any work out in the backyard because it just, it's not worth breaking a leg or a neck. And it's frickin' cold. And today it's colder than it was yesterday. And yesterday it was like when I just took the garbage out front, it was like, whoa, it's cold. I'm wondering if my camera will show. If I used to have a camera that I could rotate. So I would be able to see my garbage but I can't. So. All right. Can't see it. I just looked on one of my security cameras. I had one that used to turn like 180 degrees, so to speak, so I could look up the street. Not that that was for security purposes, that was necessary, but it just was an added feature. Had that camera for several years, but eventually one day it just zonked out. And I don't know if somebody tried to hack it and it was just hacked. But I tried all kinds of stuff to, literally took it off where I had it mounted. And it was indoors, so it wasn't even like the cold, mounted. And I, rebooted it, tried to do all kinds of other stuff and reset it up from scratch and stuff like that. And it just it was like fried somehow. I'm hoping this one, I only paid $24 for it, 25 and tax, as I said yesterday. So that you figure, well, if I could get a couple of years out of it, it's worth it. I hope I get at least a couple of years out of it. But back to this Ozark thing. So yeah, it was far too cold to go outside and do anything, just to take a walk. Like today, I'm out of cinnamon. And I put cinnamon in my cereal. It's just a thing, but it's an excuse because I'm one of those guys, I don't know about you, but I just, these people who go out and they walk. Like sometimes when I'm out there walking to the grocery store, which is about a mile or so, there's this couple, there's like walkers, and it's that good morning, But it's like, I don't know. They're walking to nowhere. They have nothing in mind. They're just out walking. Well, maybe if I had somebody to walk with, I would do that. But I'm by myself, and it's like, so if I'm by myself, it's just like I need to have a mission, a purpose, right? I'm going to from point A to point B, to get, and even if it's just something as stupid and simple as cinnamon. You see, go get that. You're out of cinnamon. Let's see. Is there anything else I'm out of while I'm down there? Right? Or I go in the store and let me grab, I'll get some blackberries, put in my cereal. Okay. Purpose. Man has a man on a mission, man with a purpose. But it's going to be 10 degrees. Right? And the streets and the sidewalk are like iced over. Deadly walk. But I think I need to get some exercise because I just stayed in the house breathing, who knows, house air. Maybe that's why I feel down. It's either that or I'll have a heart attack. Or I need a good BM. There was a time when a little bit of coffee and a couple of cigarettes would guarantee you'd clear out your system. Nowadays, doesn't do anything. High fiber diet, the whole works. Still sometimes miss a day. It's weird. Welcome to the real world. I'm telling you, they're poisoning us. It's good for you. Imagine the people, this is me showing like what's so-called healthy. This is the box of cereal that most people would pass on, right? Because, in big words, it's like whole grain oats or whatever, And so most people are going to get one of those things that's got some kind of, Count Chocula or something or whatever. Boozingberry. or whatever. Captain Crunch. I don't know if they still sell any of that stuff. Or they're whatever they're. But I mean, that stuff is loaded with sugars, you know. So, but imagine somebody getting these like frozen pizzas. You know, I see the people piling those in their thing. And all this processed food from you got the grocery store. It doesn't matter which grocery section you go to, a grocery store. There's always usually at least 2 aisles of frozen foods. You know, from things that are like frozen waffles to eggs and sausage to ice creams and, well, heck, there's almost an entire ice cream freezer practically. And then there's frozen pizzas, frozen dinners. And a lot of them are all down as if there's some kind of healthy thing or something. It's like this organic and all that kind of stuff. Or no gluten-free. That's the other one. I've gotten some of these things that say gluten-free on it, not because it was particularly I wanted it to be gluten-free, but I'm seeing like gluten-free, non-GMO or something, right? Might be on the front. Could have been on the front of this box. But I don't think you could be gluten-free and have, those kind of, in a cereal. Right, because it's got to be formed with like wheat or somehow or some kind of thing. Isn't gluten forms that kind of stuff. But whatever the case may be, is I could recall looking at something that had gluten-free, non-GMO or something on the front of it. Just that I happened to buy because I bought the thing, not for that. But because I've been reading labels because of this. I've been trying to have a low fat, low sugar, low processed food diet for this gallbladder thing because I don't want to have a gallbladder removal operation. Okay. I know it sounds horrible, but trust me, it's just knock on wood, so far so good. But then I looked at the side, and it's like, there's a garbage truck again. I hope they pick up my trash. So, and I look and it's like, okay, there's no gluten, and it's so-called non-GMO, but it's loaded with sugars and fats, and sodium, which is salt. So it's like, you know what? Do you understand? What are you? Okay, if you have a gluten-free allergy or something, that's fine. But do you understand what you're doing? You're consuming a spoonful of sugar, and, with each spoonful, it's one sugar, one's a spoonful of salt, and another's a spoonful of fat. I mean, this is like insanity. You maniac. I mean, really, it's crazy where we've come, I can hear the hum of a garbage truck, and I'm just hoping
This is insane.
that's humming next door, and then they're going to stop in front of my house. Because otherwise, if my garbage is out there, it's going to be...
This is a nightmare. Must be a nightmare.
I hope not. Cold trucks. There's one of those things came in. There's things I tell you about that you have to report. They sneak into your chat, but they don't show up as chat. Right? But it's some kind of like weird link to some, I don't know, porn site or something weird like that. So I just report them all as porn because I figure they're up to something no good and they're not likely to, like, here we go, garbage truck. Stop. Grab my bag. Seems like it's there. And off they go. I can't see exactly, but my bag must have stayed in shape. That's a relief. It's the little things in life. I don't know, man. So I flip around, I'm getting back to this Ozark thing. So the reason I ended up on Ozark was because I was flipping around YouTube and it's just the same old story. It's the, politics, political activities, and people on, new media, because I'm going to resurrect that word. We used to call it in the 90s, new media. Social media pundits are talking about using the mainstream media as their source of news and just criticizing mainstream media. Right? And they're putting up a thing. Here's something from, such and such a channel, such and such a paper. And so that's what YouTube is like and was like. And I'm like, forget that. And I pretty much worked through all the Gigi Young stuff of interest. And I started to see that further back, she started to get into some far out stuff. And, I didn't want to get into too far into it because I didn't want to have my bubble burst, because I like her. And I don't want to see that she's too far out. You know what I mean? It's like there used to be some other person I used to follow on a regular basis. And then she was like talking to some, you might know who I mean. She was talking to Swaru from some alien, I don't know, some weird thing. But I mean, she had a pretty interesting little shtick going. And it was semi-interesting and almost half believable. Or it's like the Mulder poster behind me, which you can't see, but it's I want to believe. But then like the craft supposedly went back to wherever. But then somehow, or I guess her viewership dropped and stuff like that. And somehow this person came back, this alien or something. I don't know. It was too convenient and my bubble was burst. But anyway, so avoiding that. So I said, okay, I've out, in the back of my mind, I know there was a new season of Ozark, and I had been watching that over the past couple of years. And it's one of the reasons there was some other thing I was watching on Netflix like a month or two ago. And so I had subscribed. And when I'm done, I don't even know if I'm going to watch the end of this, but I probably will. But I think it's part of the thing that mentally drained and brought me down. And I don't think I've snapped out of it yet. And this was like last night. This was before I went to bed. And I even put on YouTube and watched some mindless something other just to like get my head. I was like, watch that guy who does the weather. Is it like Tom Hall or something like that? Do you know who I'm talking about? Very animated. But yeah, it's like a lot of shows, and I've talked about this before in different, referring to different programs or generally speaking. But it's like a lot of shows, you watch a show for escapism. And you expect there to be, if a show is a certain kind of thrilling thing or something like that, you expect there to be a roller coaster ride. So it's not like you're not watching a show to see some like, unless you're some like former, some childish show, Disney-fied thing, where everybody's just dancing around and is happy throughout the entire, whatever. It's a small world, after all type of thing. No, you expect that there's going to be, ups and downs along the way, and that's fine, and there's going to be moments. But it's like, it's as if they really pack these shows to where it's so much downer in it, right? That the victories are, just aren't enough. The wins and basic story writing, there should be, there's a structure. I'm a writer, and I actually, studied that stuff. Not that you have to study it, in a course, in a classroom to be able to write. Anyone could write, and if you have an inclination to write, my advice is to write. Same with draw. You don't have to go to art school. If you can draw or paint, just paint or draw. But I mean, having gone through, those coursework where the structure of a thing, is detailed and explained, and whether you like it or not, and whether you've attended classes or not, a story tends to have a certain structure. There's, in its simplistic form, it's beginning, middle, and end, but in a more complicated form, there's like, you go up, something there's certain, there's various hills and valleys that get you to, denouement, the end, whatever. But a lot of these shows now, and these people know better because they're hacks. These writers are all hacks. So, they all came out of like, New York University or UCLA, Berkeley or something. I mean, they're right, so they know that. They know structure. And you watch these shows, and they're just like, there's the main, somebody in the character's a scene, and right at the beginning, the scene, it's like some negative thing. Argument, somebody storms out, some potential trouble thing is created. And then it cuts to another scene, and then in that scene, because there's always these simultaneously maybe three locations, 3 or 4 characters in 3 or 4 locations in a lot of these shows. This is the structure you see a lot of times now. And so that's your cuts, right? And you'll cut to this other person, and then that person's involved in some conflict that's not going well, argument or trouble, or some crazy thing they got to cover up, right? Got themselves caught in a lie, right? The FBI's on to them, and then someone else is, and you're going, where's the victory? You got to at least, and so you watch 3 of these in a row, and they know people binge watch. I mean, that's the whole idea. I mean, that's it's the nature of the beast these days. That's what you do, don't deny it, and you want somebody, it's like, there's got to be a win in the middle. It's okay if, and then you go, okay, great. Then you feel okay. And then you get into some other thing, and then, somebody, comes back, and that, and then they're down again. But then ultimately it gets to this point where there's a victory again. And hopefully it ends on a somewhat positive note, or at least semi-positive note, so you didn't leave the whole episode like really down. But some of these shows, you like start at a downer, and it's just one thing after another, and it's like, I'm not watching this to be depressed. I mean, come on. Yeah, misery loves company, but not like misery doesn't love misery that much, nonstop misery. Entertainment is escapism no matter which way you look at it. It's entertainment, the word entertain me, You know? It's weird. I swear I watched the first 3 of these things. And, yeah. They were a downer. I mean, how many problems can you get into? So I don't know, so it's like, I don't know if I want to watch the rest of it. If the story's that compelling, see, at least in like a this is, if you know Ozark, it's just about these people that got hooked up with the mob and, and weirdness and stuff, and the trials and tribulations and them trying to get out of this, it's just a big mess. And it's, kind of hillbilly type of thing. All right. Not that there's anything wrong with hillbillies. Okay. I mean, the word sounds weird, but I mean, I really, the concept of the Ozarks doesn't bother me at all. It's just that that's a story base. But so, maybe for some people it's enlightening because they've never traveled, and so it's a whole different experience seeing the Ozark, and hearing people talk with these accents and, that lifestyle down there or whatever. But see, if it was a science fiction show, like I'm a sci-fi guy, that would be a different story because at least I would have the sci-fi elements to keep me, interested. There'd be this flash of some kind of, mind-blowing concept at least thrown in there. So even if it was a downer, I'd at least have this other stuff, or there'd be these other things to look at, the technology of the starship or something. But I mean, this thing is just people in houses and people in, offices and different things like that and parking garages. And it's like, and it's a downer. It's weird. It's just not, it's like the Blacklist. While the Blacklist, I like the Blacklist because even though, it was about, even the bad guy, there were victories on both sides. And, so Raymond Reddington, the main central character, but who was technically a bad guy, would have victories and help the good guys, and but the good guys were still after him, and he was this, that, the other. And then, I mean, that was at least written in a way that you'd go through an episode and there would be ups and downs, but there was enough of that you could have some feel goodness about it. You know what I'm trying to say? Maybe I'm overstating it and I pushing the conversation too far, so I'll stop right there. But anyway, that's what I did, and yeah, it brought me down,
The future. He came from the future.
So I wish they had more stuff like that. And what happened, that they were supposed to do a Netflix was going to have, what's that one where they had all those kids, that weird thing, Stranger Things or something like that. Remember that? Like they've been saying they were going to that there was a new one of those coming forever, where they put, and I think it was supposed to come last summer or something, and it never did. Well, those kids must be getting to be adults by now, so I don't know, that's going to be weird. There's a lot of good shows, this is another frustration, and and I guess it has to do with age, this show, isn't really targeted to someone who's, just, in their 20s, put it that way, But it's like there's certain shows that just, they don't really have, anything that I could relate to in it. And yet they're like, they have this stuff. They love to do like trending. You ever notice that? Like, or here's what the top 10. And it's like, it's just them trying to push something, And then there's another thing that, I don't know if it's Netflix or if it's Amazon Prime. One of them does it, both maybe. They put, maybe it's Amazon Prime Originals, right? Or something like that. And they have shows like Jessica Jones, only about 5 deep, in the row. And it's like there hasn't been, Jessica Jones, the series is over. It's long been over. And it's like for 4 years or 3 years or something. And they like, even when you get an email, because if you're you're subscribed to the service or whatever, here's what's new this month, or here's what to watch, or, or the worst ones is the ones that really crack me up in a negative way is watch it again. And it's like, especially if it was like some like detective story or a thriller or something. Why would I want to watch it again? I know how it ended. It's like a mystery, a murder mystery. Why would I watch it again? I mean, the whole idea is that, wondering who done it, right? That's why they call them whodunits. You never know that. And it's like, so maybe that's an age thing. As you get, as you get a little older, you start looking at this stuff. But I'm on these shows, I'm going like, first of all, I don't care if it's trending. That's not my motivation. Oh, everybody's watching this show, so I should watch it. Right? It's like the top 10. That Nerve Gorilla guy was just before I went on the air, I mentioned before. He had this somebody's this ridiculous, bizarre top 10 thing on. And it was something, the guy, it was just, it was pure insanity. I don't know if he's still over there doing it or not. But top 10, right? I mean, at one point it was Billboard, it was record sales. The top 10 were sales reports, but that was there was always even payola days in that, where the record companies had, there was so much insider games being played that, they could almost guarantee you it to make the charts, at least the top 40. It's like Casey Kasem's top 40 type of thing, Yeah. But that's what they're copying this from. And they're trying to say, well, it's popular. And I'm like, who says it's popular? It's trending, right? Top 10 in the USA. Well, it's top 10 in the USA because you say it is. You see? It's like if someone it's like they do this with like books and stuff. Like, so my book, if somebody went out, some, Bitcoin, millionaire decided to buy 5,000 of my books, right, on Amazon, I would be the highest seller, right? So I have suddenly 5,000 books were sold, today or this week. And so I'd be like number one bestseller. And so there'd be people looking at there's people that buy books based on bestseller, like New York Times bestseller list or something. And what they don't understand about that whole game, like a lot of people don't understand this, that the big publishing companies, music companies, film companies, TV companies, these pay-to-play companies, they buy that stuff. They have ways of doing that. And so once they get you on the bestseller list, you're a bestseller. In other words, it's it's, self-fulfilling prophecy is what it is. But anyway, that's how it is on those things. And I look at some of them and I laugh. And here's our originals. I'm going, yeah, I've seen all your originals because on and off. See, the only good thing about Netflix is that you can cancel it at any time. They could do the same with like HBO Max now. So it's like sometimes I'll just subscribe for 1 month because I want to binge watch a particular show. And then I'll just cancel the freaking thing. And that's a good thing. Because if I couldn't do that, I wouldn't even subscribe. I'd say, well, screw the show. I'm not going to watch it. You know. And the only reason I do Amazon Prime is because I order a lot of stuff online. Not a lot of stuff, but I mean things that I need. And so Amazon Prime comes with that package. So that's a good deal. Whether I like, Amazon, well, Bezos isn't directly involved anymore, but whether or not I like the concept of that company and all that stuff doesn't really matter. It's like Walmart. Whether you like the concept of Walmart and how they destroyed the mom-pop stores, the downtowns and all that stuff, the fact of the matter is, and I don't really go to Walmart anymore, but the fact was that when I used to go, you fill a cart and you found everything you needed in it, and the prices were frickin' cheap, So what are you supposed to do, right? And, so that's just the way it is. And that's the world we live in. Now it's a delivery world. It's Instacart. I don't know if you've heard about that one. That's like all over the place. It's like Uber Eats, but Uber Eats is ridiculous. You get an email from Uber Eats and it says, I'm really on a roll right now. It's crazy, but
You're listening to Tony Caravan Live.
Uber Eats, $20 off your next order of $50 or more or something like that for a meal. And I'm like, I'm going to spend 50 frickin' bucks on a meal, man. For $50, I know how to cook. Right? I mean, I could eat for a couple of weeks on $50. I hate to say it, some people might laugh at that, but the fact of the matter is I'm probably eating better than the average person on $50 over those course of those 2 weeks. Because I just know how to shop, I know what to buy, and I can make stuff. I know how to use I know how to make a damn good salad. I know how to cook a good soup or a stew or put together some kind of thing. $20 off your next order of $55 or more or something. What? Well, anyway, the Instacart thing is they let you shop at local like supermarkets or even the Dollar Tree. And the Dollar Tree now is $1.25. So they went up 25%. Like the government tries to tell us about inflation is low. It's like, would they admit that it was at least close to 6 or 7%? I think something like that came out last week or this week. I don't know when. But it's not really. It's really like 25, 30% inflation. Because what they're not telling you is, let's look at the Dollar Tree for an example. Okay? If something cost $1 and now it's $1.25, right? That's like 25% increase, right? Right? Is that right? 25% increase? So I got that right? Yeah. Because if it was $2, it would be 100% increase. So, if, $1.50 would be a 50% increase. So the Dollar Tree is there's 25% inflation right there. Everywhere I told you that I mentioned this before. I do this gardening out back. I looked at soil and stuff just by chance when I had to pick up some stuff at Ace for my roof. We're getting like 2 days of rain the end of the week. It's going, oh, man. Maybe that's why I was in a weird mood today. Because in the back of my mind is that. But I'm trying to be positive, right? But I was up there to get some sealant stuff and, this, that, the other. But they already had this various soils and fertilizers and stuff lined up along the front of the hardware store, where you pull in your car. And I noticed the prices were double from last year. Double. So that's 100% increase. All right. The price of gas has gone up at least $1, right? From last year. So, that's like a 33% increase, I think, or something like that, 30% or 25, 30. It depends on what part of the country you live in. In oil country, it's a little bit cheaper. In the north and certain other places, it's more expensive. But no matter where you go and look, and then they don't talk about meats, people who buy, I don't buy steaks. But there's people talking about $22 steaks, I mean, you'd expect to pay $22 for a steak prepared at a restaurant, right? It's like you'd order the steak dinner, it'd be $22.95, right? And you probably get a baked potato or, or their home fries with that or something. Or maybe a salad. So, and people just sit at home and they watch TV and they say it's 6.9 or 7%. Inflation's gone up, but it's temporary. And next year it's going to go down after the election. After you vote for us, we're going to solve the problem that we said we were going to solve before the last election. It's like, and people just sit there like, dang. Maybe it's that folate, right? 235 mcg's folic acid, or that pantothenic acid, or that phosphorus that's lighting up their brain, in their, doing something to them. Phosphorescence being activated by the boob tube. So we have runaway inflation. Most serious economists are saying we're heading for a crash, a big crash, They'll probably prop up the market through the election, right? Through to November, so that they're, the incumbents will have one less thing that they have to worry about. And then probably by year's end or early January, the stock market's going to just crash. The other thing they're not counting on inflation is real estate. Like the price of real estate's gone way up. I've had personal anecdotal people tell me that, as well as watching, people who know real estate talk about it. That, hey, the value of my house has gone up to such and such. I'm saying, yeah, there's two problems with that. One is, if the value of your house goes up, that means that they can tax you more because it's worth more. So that's how they tax houses, based on that. So you can expect what they call reassessment. They do that every so often. So after the election next year, watch for what's called reassessment if you're a homeowner or a renter, because it doesn't matter. Because if the apartment building or the apartment or the house you're renting is reassessed at, a price 33% higher than its value today or was last reassessed, the tax rate, your rent's going to go up 33% to pay that. So that's what I'm telling you. We have like something like 25 to 30 some percent inflation right now. That's insane. And it's probably going to be more like a 50% inflation by next year. That's ridiculous. That puts things over the top. Like, meaning unaffordable. It's going to see what it's going to do is the poor. It's not going to affect the very poor, right? It's not going to affect the people on Social Security, retirees and stuff like that, because they'll get a Social Security increase or a cost of living increase. I mean, they're not. I mean, if you can learn to live on a basic income, and you know how to cook, and and whatever, and you're not like, you don't need the latest thing. You're not affected. But what this is going to affect what the so-called anybody left in the middle class, or what we call the upper middle class. This is going to start encroaching on the so-called, borderline elite, the inflation, because this is where the taxes are going to kick in. And so they're going to be like get a double whammy. I don't file taxes because I live this chair since I've tried to fix it. Now it's like, it's just downright uncomfortable. There's another one of these weird things in my chat that I just have to delete. Sorry about that. But anyway, I don't pay taxes because I intentionally live at the poverty level. You see? People don't understand that, and that's like a turnoff for people. Like, they think, because people want they want success, right? And they judge success based on, on income. But they don't understand the idea of somebody using, part of their brain and saying, hey, look, I could, there's my 50 songs. I didn't mean to bring that up. Check them out. YouTube. Look up Tony Caravan's Beat Poetry Tracks. That was an accident. What I wanted to pull up was this. Is that what they don't understand is that's my frickin' yard. So, I mean, so what? My taxes, mortgage, and insurance are only $200 a month, and I bought this inexpensive house. Let me show you what this backyard used to look like before I bought it and why I got this house so cheap. This is next door, this little in-between. There's a doctor's office next door to me. Here's what this same backyard looked like. Look it. Would you buy? That's like the garage. That's my garage, my man cave. Would you buy a place like that? And that's after I chopped down all these weeds. You could see the weeds. And look how crappy the wooden fence is, right? Now, let's go back to where I was. Same place. All right? Same garage, right? See, somebody was watching and that turned them off. Because they didn't want to see success. They want to see success. They were probably watching because, all right, because of the YouTube live presented to thing that's a fake in the background. But anyway, no. The point of the matter is you can live well. It's just up to you. Just got to use your brain, man. And so you have to prepare yourself to be to not allow this runaway inflation to affect you. And it's just the same with these foods. You can't allow yourself to be poisoned. Look at the side of the frickin' label, man. All they're doing is giving you fats and sugars. Who cares if it says non-GMO or organic or whatever on the side? See, the thing is, when it says like cane sugar, sometimes that's a new thing now. Pure cane sugar or cane sugar. Well, that's considered organic. Yeah, well, you're consuming sugars. And the worst one is when they say organic is corn. High fructose corn syrup is organic. And for those people who are against what they call fossil fuels. Well, they're organic too. They come from the earth, right? You can't get more organic than good old, crude oil, right? Or natural gas or coal. That's all organic. What do you think it is? Can't believe I had a couple of listeners and I chased them both away once I started talking about the reality. People really want success, They want to be associated with somebody who's making six figures, and they don't understand that in today's society, it's the complete opposite. And going into 2023, success is going to be surviving and thriving, right? And using your brain, your bioelectric brain, and, your consciousness, whatever, as well, as I often talk about. Because that's the way to survive. Yeah, it's crazy, man. I think about it. So you can still see there's a snow pile out there that's got across through the camera 2 view up there. Across the street. And I decide to take a walk to get some cinnamon and fresh air and exercise. The temperature dropped. Since I talked to you, it's now 7 degrees outside. And now the temperature reading is like at 7 a.m., instead of being 10 degrees, it might go up to 9 at sunrise, so a so-called sunrise. 10 degrees by 8 a.m., maybe. I mean, I don't know. I really want to get some exercise, and I don't want to wait till later on and all that. I want to go early, get it over with, and all that kind of crap. But it's 7 degrees outside right at this minute. 7 degrees. It's going to be 9 degrees if I decide to I'm disconnecting my coffee warmer. I feel a little bit better than I felt when I started this show. But, I don't know. I got to get outside. But you just got to wonder at 9 degrees, it's not like I'm going to be breathing in fresh air. I'm going to freeze the hair follicles in my lung and nose. I'll probably have to have a scarf around my face. Keep from getting frost. That's frostbite. I mean, if there's the slightest bit of wind, and I know this from expeditions, covering these Antarctic and North Pole and Himalayan expeditions. When you get down into single digits and you just have, what we normally people call wind chill, the slightest bit of wind, forcing that. It doesn't have to be like gale force winds, just, 5, 10, 15 mile an hour winds, little winds. That's going to take the temperature down even lower, So we're talking like probably, sometimes they say real feel. I'm not looking at that kind of weather thing. I don't go to those sites. But I'm sure the real feel is like 0 Fahrenheit, which is like minus, I don't know, 20 Celsius or something like that. I don't know. But it's frickin' cold, put it that way. Hey, Greta. Hey, Al Gore. Oh, by the way, so in case you didn't notice, what I had it. If you didn't pay attention yesterday, my Facebook account, I'm getting rid of it completely. Of course, they have you in that 30-day thing. Now, I don't know if I accidentally use, because I still use Instagram when I do my gardening stuff, and I post stuff on that. And that's now it's part of, well, it's always been part of Facebook, but I mean, now it says, Meta, has the Meta logo on the bottom. But I don't know if by using that, it's going to like extend this thing. So I just want to be totally disassociated with Facebook altogether now. I'm tired of that. I think most people should too. And I think I'm going to do the same with Twitter. I've kept my Twitter account. I have a couple thousand followers there. And I would post a link to my videos on there. And occasionally someone would watch them. And I have gotten over the past year a direct message or two about some people wanting to buy my book or something like that. And so I kept it up, even though I don't do anything on it really. Because it's like, I don't know. Like the thrill is gone. 2 years ago I used to play the Twitter game. But when there was that great, purging, I remember like in one day they like wiped out, 1 million Twitter users, right? And some of them, I guess, were following me. I remember losing 1,000 followers in one day. Like one day I had, it was like 1,000 people were just off my following list. And that was because they just no longer existed. They were just totally banned and taken off. And then I just go, well, then forget it, And then I posted some stuff on Twitter that was like outrageous. I was like trying to get kicked off. And for some reason they wouldn't kick me off. Still don't even understand that one to this day. I even tried again about a month ago. I put some outrageous freaking tweets out. Stuff I can't even repeat here because YouTube would instantly take you off. Just for the sake of it. Because I didn't care. And they didn't. So I don't even understand that. It's like, I guess, and I know I'm not like, I'm like semi-shadow banned, I think. But I'm not completely because, like I say, I still go on when I'll post. I don't do it all the time, but I'll post a link. And I will get notifications and people. So I still have a couple thousand followers. I don't know. So it's weird. I don't understand that aspect of it. Now, here's a different story. Here I am like pretty much, unless you seek me out directly, there's no way to like accidentally discover this. Right? It's virtually impossible. Virtually impossible. So, so here we are, And like I said, the second beginning of the end, Psychoville Part 2. That's what we're living in. Let's face the facts. Psychoville. There's no rebounding. There's no building back better. There's no save America. There's no great reset. There's no nothing, I mean, we're either going to get like blasted by a CME. The Earth's magnetic field's just going to keep on getting weaker until cosmic rays come in and do much worse than making a blade of grass turn into a corn stalk, as I talked about earlier in the show. If you missed that, rewind. But our life expectancy dropped by 2 years over the past couple of years. It had nothing to do with that plague thing either. These were statistics that came out in like 2020, like leading up to that thing. And you know, and who knows what else is going on. But this runaway inflation thing, I'm telling you, that's just gonna like be the downfall of this country. And people don't know how to cook. Right? They don't know how to survive. They don't know what to do. So what are they going to do when they can't afford, you know, even people on fixed incomes, you know, on these Social Security and welfare and stuff like that, they get their money and they go out and they buy a pile. I've watched them in the grocery stores because I live, like I said, I showed you my neighborhood. I have a cheap house, you know, but at least I'm on the main drag, you know. So the main drags, if you're going to live in a cheap neighborhood, live on the main drag, you know. My bedroom's in the back, so it's like these trucks that I have shown on, you know, that, you know, I show on coming up through the camera too there. Sometimes the house shakes, though, because, you know, the bad job they tried fixing the sewer. But, I mean, apart from that, is I'm in the back. I get a decent night's sleep. I don't get woken up by traffic. I used to sleep in my front bedroom, which is a much nicer room. But it was just too noisy, so I basically moved to the back. And the back is warmer, cozier. It's just smaller. I don't care. And I'm only down here. This literally is my studio room in the front. It's a small room. This used to be a barber shop, this room. Like a guy had a single barber chair here. Yeah. It was a barber. So the people, imagine a person, you know, people get they get their, you know, welfare check, which is really just, there's no such thing, kind of. It's like all electronic transfer, right? Electronic benefits transfer, they call it. So they get their electronic benefits transfer or their, you know, money deposited in their bank account, you know, through Social Security, direct deposit, whatever. And they go out and they buy. And if you happen to be in the first week of the month, you will see piles of frozen pizzas in shopping carts, bags of chips, 12 packs of soda, you know, that kind of thing, right? And the price of all those things is shot up too. And so these people will have all of that. And I know a guy who has like a food, you know, fast food type of place, you know. And, you know, so all these people order these ridiculous things. I mean, the price of fast food is really expensive. Well, as inflation keeps going up, the prices keep going up because they have to pay employees more money now. So every time there's like, the wage goes up to $12 or $15, you know, in a regular business, then they put that on the customer, the price of the item. It's like, did you ever notice if you know, on a utility bill where it says like federal excise tax, state tax, such and such tax, this tax. And it's like, there's this whole list, even on your like internet and cable. And what they're doing is they're dividing up the taxes that the government is charging them, and they're making you pay their taxes. Right? They're like, well, okay, you're going to raise our taxes. And they divide it up. And the government doesn't do anything about it, right? Shouldn't say, you know, I mean, from my standpoint is that, you know, if they're taxed, they should have to pay that out of their income, not like give it to us. Why are we paying their taxes? And that's another one of these people like, duh, you know, they're just like totally brainwashed. But the same happens with restaurants and food and everything else. And fertilizer, it doesn't matter what it is. if the state demands them to pay their employees an extra couple bucks an hour, or their taxes go up, then they put those prices, they divide, these are business people. And they have software that does this half the time, or they have a CPA, an accountant that does it. And they look and they divide, okay, how much is it going to, what's our fixed costs this year, fixed and variable costs. That's how businesses operate. And they're going to look at them and they're going to say, okay, well, these costs went up such and such a percent. We have to make up so many thousands or whatever it is dollars. And so they're going to divide that up or figure, through price increases on various items. And whatever item they can get away with it, the most on will, be the highest, and some items they might not. Right? And then the stores still have those things called loss leaders, like stores like Walmart will do that. So they'll still put out a circular, and on the first page or something like that, they'll have certain items that look relatively cheap, or from time to time. And that's to get you to go into the store. And once you're in the store pushing the cart, you're just throwing things into the thing. And you don't realize that even the price, somebody was telling me the other day, the price of the cat food they were buying, the can of cat food, had increased by like 30 cents or almost doubled or something like that. So you understand, so when just because the government says so, that there's 7% inflation or something weird like that, which is ridiculous to begin with, doesn't mean it is what it is, because in the real world, we're out there shopping and buying stuff and paying bills, and we're looking and going, wait a second. The price of this bag of soil for my raised bed garden is double what I paid last year, right? Then they talk about supply chain this and supply chain that, it's crazy. But when you think about it, why is the price of soil didn't really double, right? The price of lumber didn't double. There's so much lumber. Lumber grows. It's a renewable resource. In fact, good forest management, the best lumber comes from the downed trees, the dead trees, because it's dry wood and it's less likely to curl and all that stuff. People who know anything about like working with wood, right? So it's not like you don't want to chop down fresh trees, living trees. You basically want to chop down the trees, And when you get rid of those trees, the dead trees, you open up the canopy of the forest, and there's new growth comes in, and new trees grow. And that's also good forest management and helps prevent forest fires too, because there's less of this dead, dry stuff on the base of the forest. It's like common sense stuff that they never talk about in a 2-minute newscast where they say, this is the worst forest fire in California history caused by global warming, climate change. And you're like, well, first of all, in history, nobody's even been here that long. Not even the indigenous people, right? Right? Because America was covered with ice, 10,000 some years plus years ago. That area, most of those forested areas. So it's like, so there weren't even, don't even play that game. And as far as modernity, the European influx of people, Lewis and Clark expedition and stuff, those guys, it's like a couple hundred years. Come on, be real. in history. You don't know that. I mean, and they say that, and people watch the TV, believe this is the truth. So it's like, yeah, why would the price of lumber double, right? They're dead trees. It's forest management. It's a good thing to do. It's good for the forest, good for everything, right? The tree's just going to rot away. You might as well use it. It's a renewable resource, right? Well, how come the price of everything's like doubled, or tripled? And, part of it is this inflation is caused by, there's some complications to it. It's caused by debt, the value of the U.S. dollar, the Federal Reserve, this, that, the other. But, when it really comes down, and the price of wages going up. But, you take all those things into consideration, and it still doesn't get you up into the 25%, 33%, 50% increases, price increases, or doubling, let alone 100%, the price doubling. And people that hasn't like hit people yet, like a lot of people. I mean, I'm aware of it. And I'm more conscious when I buy and I pay my bills and I look at stuff. I keep a budget. That's what I try to tell people. People, I have this thing. And I just do this, and I don't care. You don't have to buy this frickin' book or not. It's my latest book, or my book from this winter, which is my latest book. Where is this thing? I never seem to find that one page I want to show you every time I show you. And I have pages bookmarked in here too, which is dog-eared. But I'm going to show you this, even though it's taken longer than I would like. There it is. All right. My hand off of that. You see where it says monthly budget? And I always put stuff like this in my books. All right. And there's some other things in there. And it lists all these things. And it may seem rather simplistic to you. And you go, well, I'm using such and such. And I do that thing on my taxes and stuff. No, what you need to do is you need a monthly budget right now more than ever. And you need to really think things out and be on top, keep on top of stuff. Because what's happening is your credit cards, what they call the APR, all right? You might have a credit card that you got at a fairly low interest rate. And you go, well, I'll charge it until things like kind of settle out. Look at that, like that blue glow as the sun rises off in the distance through the camera. Can you see that? It's just like the sunrise. Sun's starting to rise out there. Let's get rid of this thing. You see that glow? That's those buildings across the way, and to the left is like as the sun is just starting to, light starting to come behind those buildings. It's interesting. But anyway, the interest rate on your credit cards and your loans, if you don't have a fixed, even mortgage, if you don't have a fixed mortgage, for example, I have a fixed mortgage, which means interest rates could go sky high, which they are going to go up. The Federal Reserve has said they're going to raise interest rates 3 times this year, maybe, and then 3 times the following year. So 2023 is going to be like hell, and you better get ready for it, Anyway, I could talk forever about this. And good morning. It's, I don't know. Thanks for watching. Visit my show site, TonyCaravanLive.com or ROCKFLUX.com. It's the same site. I'm also on Rumble if for some reason I disappear from here. But if you go to ROCKFLUX.com, I keep telling people this, and that's a promise. I'm going to build that out to a website that's useful and has more things of use into it. Instead of just having links to my hoodies and my books and great solar stuff and things like that. But I advise you, or not advise you. I ask you, request of you to get my latest book, Then What, or Codex, or to go to Great Solar Stuff. It's not all solar stuff. There's some items in there that are just power backup things. And to get some of my gear, support the show. Let me know that you support the show. Otherwise, I'll talk to you soon, probably tomorrow again. This is the beginning of the end, so I'll talk to you soon.